Sri Lanka's most powerful news brand.
Hello, good evening and welcome to Newsfirst Review 360. We're taking a different tack on the program this evening. We're going to be talking about the liberalizing of the shipping sector in Sri Lanka, the opposition that has come from major shipping companies, the sentiments of the public, of intellectuals, of experts in the area. We're also going to be talking about the tax reforms that have come into play in the United States, the effects that they will have on Asia and the world at large, among other things. To discuss all this and more, we're joined this evening by Mr. Rohan Masakorala, CEO of the Shippers Academy, Colombo, and a well-known policy maker.
Hello.
Very good evening to you, Mr. Masakorala, and welcome to Newsfirst Review 360. I'd like to start by asking you, last evening I was at or this week rather, I was at a discussion which featured the chairman of the Institute of Policy Studies, Dr. Razin Sali, a very well-known advocate for liberalism. And he mentioned a cartel in Sri Lanka's shipping sector that is opposing liberalism and that is almost, well, in my words, almost holding the export sector ransom. Do you believe that there is a cartel in the shipping industry in Sri Lanka?
Well, I would not use the word cartel, but there is an organized sector in Sri Lanka that opposes shipping agency business liberalization. So that is the cartel probably Dr. Saleh mentioned. It can be seen as a cartel or it can be seen as an organized group who is opposed for liberalization. And also the issue here is that the global shipping industry over the last 2-3 years has rapidly changed. Post 2008, the shipping industry went into a difficult situation because of cargo issues, international trade issues, market sinking, imbalance of trade, and as a result the global shipping lines have actually merged or come together to some kind of arrangements as shipping.
It's almost an oligopoly of sorts.
It's turned into an oligopoly globally. Now with that situation, now when we had several agents handling different shipping companies, when those shipping companies merged, the local agency businesses also had to restructure in some way, and that situation brought in a situation where some companies were buying the other companies' agencies, and it has come to become a small number of players in the agency business as well who are controlling a major stake in the market. So this is looked at as a cartel, and I've seen already a politician has gone to courts on monopolization of the business. So that is one side of the story. Liberalization is another side of the story.
Why is there a need to liberalize? Is there a need, rather, I'll ask you the question, is there a need to liberalize the shipping sector in Sri Lanka, to open it up to international players? Because as you mentioned quite rightly earlier, shipping globally has become a oligopoly of sorts. So these are big companies that could very easily level the competition in Sri Lanka if there is. So why is there a need, and is there a need to liberalize the shipping sector?
There is definitely a need to get international players to be present in Sri Lanka. Any cartelization globally is affects globally, not only to Sri Lanka. For that, there are international organizations such as the European Competition Commission and the American FMC. They look at these kind of global mergers and see whether it is going to affect the consumers or the public at large by these mergers. They do depth study for these global mergers or understandings between various shipping lines to work. So that's a global issue, that's not a Sri Lankan issue.
How will liberalizing the shipping sector impact local players in Sri Lanka?
Well, liberalizing in Sri Lanka, it has to be explained properly. Sri Lanka actually started its liberalization process in the late 80s, early 90s. during late President Premadasa's period. The shipping corporation was the key player at that time, with the central freight booking or freight bureau was the agency where our exporters had to go and book their freight, and there was a kind of a monopoly of the Ceylon Shipping Corporation that all cargoes going to Europe, wherever they served, to be booked through Ceylon Shipping Corporation, and foreign shipping lines only would get what is left over or what is not been able to take by CSC. So during the time of 1991, this was liberalized and said foreign shipping lines can compete in the Sri Lankan market, and it was opened for foreign ship owners, but through an agency system where the local agent had the majority stake and the foreign ship owner had a 40% stake.
So isn't this system working, this agency system? It sounds like a functional.
It is functional for 25 years, but
so why is there a need to further open up?
Well, the issue here is if you are a businessman, would you go and invest in a country where you are a minority stakeholder of your own business? That's the question you have to ask. Now, all the top shipping lines globally are present in their own offices in Singapore, Dubai, even in India, even in Pakistan have opened up their own offices. That doesn't mean that they are going to throw away the local service providers or local partners. They cannot operate without local partnerships. But as a business owner, they have the right to take decisions on their business, whether they are going to make Sri Lanka a shipping hub, a turnaround port, or expand in Sri Lanka, all depends on the business owner's decisions. So shipping is a global business, as I told you, and Sri Lanka is not a global ship owner. So we depend on foreign ship owners to use our ports, and they have to decide whether Sri Lanka is going to be the shipping center of the Indian Ocean, not anybody else, not me, not our government, nor our agents. They are agents of those principles. So those principles have to be partnering this country. For that, at least they need a 51% stake in their own business. If they are a minority, it is unlikely that they will look at Sri Lanka as their main hub. So what is our vision for the country? To make Sri Lanka a maritime nation. We can't make maritime nation without global players, global capital.
How does liberalizing the shipping sector, how does it serve the national interest? When I say the national interest, I'm not talking about making Sri Lanka a maritime hub, because that serves business interest. How does it serve the national interest in the sense of how does it serve the interests of the people?
Well, people in the long run, there is going to be a multiplier effect to the economy. When a ship comes, you have to think as that as a foreign direct investment. Every time a foreign ship owner brings a ship to our port, it's a foreign direct investment that comes and goes. That generates many amounts of businesses locally into the ports. So ports are built by the public of this country's money. We all know we have borrowed millions of dollars to build ports, including the Colombo Port East Terminal and the breakwaters. We need to pay back this money, so we need ship owners to bring more ships and more cargo to Sri Lanka. If they don't use Colombo or in future any of our ports, we are dependent on them. We are not a global shipping owning country. So they need to bring their ships here, and we need to encourage them to come more and take not only ship. Right now what happening, we are just bringing in transshipment. They have not expanded their maritime activity in this Sri Lanka because they feel that they are a minority stakeholder and they are being controlled by government. So business doesn't like, in a free economy, government enforcing tariffs on them, government telling that you must pay your agent so much for the service. That is market determined. All these things are few negative factors that are keeping us out of the global hub position. So we are only dependent on the transshipment, and that can go out anytime if India starts competing.
On that note, we're going for a short commercial break. I want to touch a little bit more on the issues of surrounding transshipment and other ports in the region that are taking up, that are becoming transshipment ports, so to speak. All this and more as soon as we come back. Welcome back to BizFirst Review 360. We're in conversation with Mr. Rohan Masakorala, CEO of the Shippers Academy Colombo and a well-known policymaker as well. when we left off, we were talking about, we'd just gotten started on the topic of transshipment. You shared an interesting article with me recently on, does South Asia need 3 transshipment ports? Does South Asia need three transshipment ports? And these ports that are coming up in India that will be competing with Colombo, will they be able to sort of compete with Colombo? What's your take on this?
I think in the medium term, India cannot compete with Sri Lanka, especially the southern Indian. We depend on actually the southern Indian states for transshipment. The northwest Indian ports are not serving Colombo as a transshipment. They have direct callers, and the east of it also, majority is actually, if you look at Kolkata and that area, majorly served by Singapore. We have not attracted them as yet. There are several reasons for that. End of the day, a ship owner decides to call a particular port, not anybody else, right? It's a ship owner, whether it is Maersk or MSC or Evergreen or any big shipping line. They look at the global situation and they do their costings. So end of the day, when you are a ship owner, you look at your unit cost of handling a container box. I'm talking about container shipping. So that's why we only get the big boxes at the moment from South India. Mainly Chennai and those ports are serving Colombo as a transshipment, and that accounts for 70% of our volume. So I don't see India's geographical locations. They are both east-west located. Industrial zones are now being expanded in the east also. India has a Sagarmala project, very much connecting the Indian ports through coastal shipping. So India is going to grow definitely, but that doesn't mean that India is going to be a transshipment port in the immediate future. They are building a couple of locations to try to attract shipping lines, but logically at this moment it doesn't work.
What is the status of the liberalizing of the shipping sector, shipping and logistics sector in India at the present, in comparison to Sri Lanka? Are they far more liberal, far more open, or are they behind?
India is ahead of us. India has actually liberalized the shipping sector. India just liberalized the aviation sector. As well as foreigners even can own some of 49% of the Indian.
My worry is this. Correct me if I'm wrong in my thinking, but you already have a big player in as a country in India that has opened up its market and that has started to attract big shipping companies to set up shop, so to speak, in India. Sri Lanka aiming to liberalize now, like sweeping liberalization in the shipping sector now. Will we actually be able to attract those companies that are setting up shop in India here, or are we going to end up in a sort of a, to use the colloquial Sinhalese, ehitna mehitna kind of situation?
You are right in one way. We are a little too late as a nation to take this decision due to various pressures and lobbies and interests. So obviously we are late because it's not only India.
My question is doing it late dangerous?
No, we need to do it if we have to become our ambition of becoming a maritime center. Otherwise we can forget about becoming a maritime center, because there are 2 hubs basically around us, that is Singapore and Dubai. Both are more or less 100% open. Dubai has a different method of doing things, that is the sleeping partner, and you need to work with a fixed amount and all that. That's a different method, but those are very liberal economies in the Middle East, where there are like Qatar and Dubai. You can't, it's a different model because they are rulers, not democratic systems. Whereas in the Indian subcontinent, Pakistan, India and also Bangladesh also has opened up the system for foreign companies to come and set up. So if you're looking at a core business, the core business of shipping, if the owners and operators are not present, without their input, you cannot expand the sector. They have to be partners and players, and this worry of that local companies of shipping agents and their services will be totally dismantled is a myth, because in Singapore now it's a 100% liberalized economy for shipping. All the ship owners are present in terms of regional headquarters and all these things, and also there are about 5,000 agents, all Singaporeans, competing for various other services. That's comes around a ship. Ship owners don't do everything, even recruitment they have subcontract. So their presence is going to help our economy and our local agents to expand, and especially the SME sector will have new opportunities. So that this one company doesn't monopolize and say this is my price, or government intervenes and say you have to pay so and so much. That will be driven. You can provide the same service if better than me, then the shipping line will go and get the service from you. So it's opening up more for the owner as well as new opportunities for the shipping community in Sri Lanka. If you look at the models in other countries, they have worked. Only problem, as you said, is we are late, and some of the Indian subcontinent headquarter operations have gone to India. But given the location again, which we always talk about, Sri Lanka has huge potential to expand, and in some other areas like the border control areas and other things, Sri Lanka is still ahead of India in many areas, including the port efficiency. So those things coupled up together, over the medium term we should be able to attract international players to come, and especially logistics companies, which are very critical because we don't have global players here at all, few who are there. And they have the scale. We cannot, Sri Lankan companies don't have what's called the economic scale to expand, whereas foreign companies are billions, some are bigger than our economy. So they can transform the location into a real maritime center besides a transshipment location.
So then what's the fear? Where does this fear come from? I mean, there has to be some kind of fire for there to be this much smoke.
Of course, yes.
So why are the agents here in Sri Lanka so fearful of, or so opposed to these moves that were announced to liberalize the shipping sector?
Yeah, good question. Liberalizing is important. Liberalizing comes with a tool called a regulator. So I am very happy that the government has put a proposal for a regulator as well in the ports and shipping sector, because when you liberalize, you need to look at certain practices where market can be manipulated by anybody. So we need to fix that also whilst we are liberalizing. That's an important factor. All developed countries have good regulators. So liberalizing alone is not going to solve everything. We need to put certain things in place, and I am very happy that proposals talk about a regulator. But the question you asked about the opposition is, well, there are protectionists in the system, because people have got used to a system over a period of 25 years. Government has given them assurance of a tariff. So you don't have to innovate. You just, more ships come, more cargo comes for transshipment. You are just a third party agent and you don't add value addition. You are not innovative. You are not innovative. You are just a broker in between. In fact, the previous government Secretary to Treasury very clearly said this. Agency business in Sri Lanka has become a broker. Broker means taking money from both sides and not innovating, because the system is guaranteeing you that you are there. Here the system is not guaranteeing that you are there. If you are efficient, only you are there. You pay a commission to you, you pay a service charge to you, because if you add value. If you don't add value in a supply chain, that means you are a cost set. You are a cost to the exporter and the service principal. So you eliminate a part of the competition in that sense, if you are in between and not adding value. So that's why I said in Singapore and all, there are enough and more agents because they add value to the ship owner. Right? But the ship owner gets his freight collected and he doesn't have to pay commissions for his freight. That means the cost as a cost, right? If I pay 5% commission on $3,000 to third party, and that third party is just calling you and getting a rate, and the other side giving me a rate, if I can do that online or booking through online like the airlines. Today the airlines, you don't go and buy tickets, you don't go to agent, no? You go to online and buy your ticket, and it's very competitive and very cheap. So market forces will decide whether you need a third party or not for a particular service.
Thank you, Mr. Masakura. On that note, we're going for another break. On the other side of this break, though, I want to talk about what liberalizing means for jobs. Welcome back to the show. We're in conversation with Mr. Rohan Masakorala, CEO of the Shippers Academy of Colombo. One of the main sticking points that detractors of liberalism, of liberalizing, bring up is the fact that, look, if you're going to just willy-nilly open up markets, you're going to, if you're only thinking from the perspective of the consumer, you're going to cost jobs. and that there are jobs that are going to go away from the country. There are hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people that will lose their jobs. This is one of the biggest sort of arguments that is put forward by the other camp. Specifically in relation to the shipping sector here in Sri Lanka, do you see that kind of impact on Sri Lankan jobs if we do open up the shipping sector?
Not really, actually. That's well, I would say their marketing method of telling that if you do this, this is going to happen. You see, liberalized or not, the current shipping industry, ship owners have their back offices in Malaysia, India. So they, over the period of last 10-15 years, they have adapted technology, they have adapted BPOs and outsourced many things. So we have also witnessed that the numbers of staff levels from say 150 has dropped down to about 50 to 25 even now, before liberalizing even, where they have looked at managing their offices efficiently. So that has no relevance about liberalization. Liberalization is about freedom of choice for the owner. The job creation actually is going to be in the long term more, because if business owners are here and they decide to invest here more, because Sri Lanka is free for them, and transfer some of the jobs from maybe the high paying countries. Labor cost in Sri Lanka is relatively low. If you look at Singapore, is per capita is $55,000, we are $3,800. Dubai is about around $50,000, we are $3,800. This is the difference between Dubai, Singapore and Sri Lanka.
So do we have the talent pool though in the in the shipping, transport and logistics sector? Do we have that pool of talent in Sri Lanka that big international players are going to be looking for, or will this also result in us getting foreign professionals to come and do those jobs here? Think of it from the perspective of your job. Are you going to lose your job if through this?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because I am in the training industry and I compete with foreign training companies like the Chartered Institute of Shipping and Chartered Institute of Logistics, and I have doing pretty well here. I am never a person who asks for any protection from government to compete. If I am inefficient, that means I am giving something bad to my client. So let the most efficient person, that does it matter foreign or not, I would rather in my business of education give the best education to the people. But in this term, Sri Lankans are absolutely talented in terms of skills, and the shipping industry problem is we can't retain our top people here. They are all going to Dubai and Singapore for higher paid jobs. Lots of Sri Lankans are all around the world in shipping and logistics, the qualified people, even they are top officials at the Maersk headquarters. Right. So Sri Lankans, there is no problem of training our people, and they are very good in terms of delivery. So if the ship owners come here seriously, our people are the best talent pool that they can find for the jobs that they need. We don't have to import. Maybe specialized areas, specialized skills, we will have to import some of the top at the highest level to set up certain operations and certain expertise to be brought in, which the shipping companies have globally. Other than that, I don't see the average managers, senior manager level to below any other jobs. I think Sri Lankans are well suited and they are very well positioned around the world to do that, and I am confident that our people will get more opportunity and better salaries if principals come here. That's my point.
Than working through the agents or the brokers.
I mean the agents. As I said, all agents are not going to lose all their jobs and close their offices. That's not going to happen. That has not happened anywhere in the world where they have opened up. In fact, it has happened the other way around. Multiplier effect has come because of the business owner is sitting with you and he has the big money, big plans. He can invest, he can decide to invest, he decides what to do. In any business, whether it is coconut plucking or shipping, if the business owner is not there, rest of the people can't build that business. Tourism builds through tourism companies and tourist hotel chains. If their presence is not there, if Shangri-Las are not here, if the Taj is not here, that they will not go and market it outside. No agent in Sri Lanka can go and say come here if then what Shangri-La says, I am present in Sri Lanka. If big names are going to come and set up, expand, and now you see already Maersk has sent a signal with a press release that they are very.
So you believe that that multiplier effect will lead to more job creation, and that there is a talent pool here that can service these principles?
The biggest example is our apparel industry. It's 100% open. Foreign companies can come and set up and start supplying brands. Right? We compete, but who are the two best producers in Sri Lanka? Two Sri Lankan companies.
On that note, I'd like to shift quickly before we wrap up. Just one final question. You mentioned that there will be a regulator. Very briefly, in 30 seconds if you can you tell me what will be the role of this regulator?
The role of the regulator would be to make sure that anybody who invests in this country serves Sri Lanka's interest and the laws are adhered to, and there is no anti-competitive practices put in, and also not to make Sri Lanka a cost center just because they have been liberalized. These things have to be looked after carefully, and that's a very important area which we have to serve the interest of the country.
Mr. Masakoela, thank you very much for coming on Biz First Review 360 once again, and bringing some clarity and some much needed clarity to this very heated debate in the shipping and logistics sector, at least. That's our show for this evening. That's Biz First Review 360. Don't forget to look us up on Facebook. You'll find us at Biz First Review 360. I'll see you again, same time, same place next week. Good night and good luck.